Hi everyone and welcome back to Valley View Living. My name is Megan. I'm a homeschooling, homemaking mum to 6 kids, and I've got my own little backyard farm here in New South Wales, Australia, where we keep a few cows, a few chickens, a couple of pigs, cats, dogs and all the rest. Welcome. This morning I am getting started with making some pizza dough by request. My kids love having pizza. We live in the country and there is no such thing as pizza delivery here. So if we're going to have pizza, I have to be organized and get going with the dough first thing in the morning. That way I will just let it sit and grow through the day and it will be ready to use in the evening. So the dough is very simple. It is 2.5 teaspoons of yeast to approximately 1 cup of warm water. Then you set that aside with a tablespoon of honey mixed in for about 10 minutes, just for the yeast to bloom and to come alive. Then I'll come back 10 minutes later and add in 1/3 cup of olive oil, a teaspoon of sea salt, and then enough flour to bind that mixture into a beautiful, smooth, elastic dough. So I find that's around 3.5 cups of flour. And then you just let your dough hook or your hands do the work until it feels beautiful and it is ready to sit and wait. Now I'm getting ready to make some granola for my family. This is something I love having around, just sitting on the kitchen bench. So at any point during the day when somebody says, I'm hungry, and it's in between meals, I can just say, hey, grab some fresh fruit or have some granola. Help yourself. And that helps me so much to just be able to outsource that and just, let the kids grab their own snacks. Now I'm just mixing some honey here with maple syrup and melted coconut oil. I do find it much easier to stir together if I have melted the oil. And here it is cool enough that the coconut oil is always solidified when I've left it just in the kitchen. So I'm measuring out the oats here. The ratio is around 3 cups of oats to about 1/2 cup of oil, and 1/4 cup each of maple syrup and honey. So I usually double that so there is enough for a good amount of granola to get us through the week. Granola is so tasty, it is so handy, it is filling while still being really crunchy, yummy, sweet, so kids don't feel like it is, a healthy quote-unquote food. But it is actually quite nourishing, quite nutrient dense, especially if you are thoughtful with your add-ins and you can get things into the granola that maybe your kids don't normally snack on. Things like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, all kinds of tasty things you can add in that are full of nutrients. Now I've just got some shredded coconut in here. I do have a little sunflower seed pepita mix, which is really easy, a little bit of sea salt. This is actually a chocolate granola, so I've added in some cacao powder into that one. And I've also got slivered almonds, just because I found them in the cupboard and thought, why not? They'll add a bit of crunch, right? My kids prefer the granola to have no fruit in it, so that's fine, I just leave that out. Granola is one of those things that I guess is kind of labor intensive to make, so it can be quite expensive to buy if you're buying a nice quality one. Also, the ingredients from the shops are just not the same as the way that you can include them at home. So I know that when I'm looking to buy granola, they always use some kind of veggie or seed oil, and they're usually just using sugar or a glucose syrup or something like that. And we do sometimes buy granola. That's absolutely fine. If I'm not in the season of life where I have some time at home to make it, we just buy it. But the other thing that I find is that it's quite expensive for what it is. That is just like an enriched baked oat. Oats are pretty cheap, but when you buy it as a granola, the price just really increases. This is another reason why I like to make it at home. So I've just stirred the honey, maple syrup, and coconut oil mixture into the dry cereals, and I'm just going to pop it in an oven. You don't want it too hot because it will burn, so about 150, and I'm going to leave that to bake for about 15 minutes. Then I need to take it out and stir it through, and that way it all gets toasty and golden brown. And then you leave it until it's completely cooled and it is crunchy and sweet and delicious, all good. Now I'm just getting back to my pizza dough. It's been sitting in my kitchen. My kitchen is not particularly warm today, but it is a reasonable temperature, and the dough has puffed up right up to the top of the mixing bowl, so it's more than doubled in size. Now I'm just taking the pizza dough out, just going to work it a little bit, and that gives it its second rise, and that makes it relaxes the gluten a lot, makes it really easy to roll out, stretch out, and will make it much easier to work with when I'm turning that into pizza very soon for dinner. The cows have their own pecking order, so to speak. So our big matriarch there is the big brown Hazel. She is about a 4th year cow here. She's had a couple of calves, and she knows she rules the roost. She's the top of the clan there, and she will let every other cow know. This little cow that I am patting now is Cream. She is a little speckled park heifer, and I am training her up to be my milking cow for life. So I would love to have her here for the long haul, over the next 10 years on our farm, giving us milk and having calves here. She is just so naturally friendly and really perfect for the job. So now back into the kitchen, I've got to check on this granola. I've already turned this once, and now it looks just right, crispy all the way through. So I'm going to set that aside on the kitchen bench top and just let it completely cool. And that way it'll be ready for us to have for snacks tonight if anybody is hungry after dinner, and definitely ready to go for breakfast tomorrow. Time to make pizza now, and I've got some local salami there, some grated cheese. That brand of grated cheese from Coles is really wonderful. They just use tapioca starch instead of like the wood cellulose to stop it all sticking, so that's really great. And then I've got my mozzarella there with added wood cellulose just to keep it real. And it is so delicious to have mozzarella on pizza, so I'm absolutely making those compromises, and that's just real life, right? So you can see the pizza dough, because it's been left to sit for at least 6, maybe even 7 hours today, that it is beautifully pliable and soft. The gluten has really relaxed, and it is now easy to roll out, and it makes that dough light and airy and also chewy in the crust, really tasty. So I'm just going to roll out these crusts and make a couple of pizzas for the family. My kids like to keep it pretty plain, so I make them a really big plain cheese pizza, and then I might make another one that my husband and I enjoy. So we will have a bit of the salami on top there, and often I'll add things like jalapenos or some onion, mushrooms if I have them. Absolutely delicious. But a lot of us just think simple is best. So I've also just got 1 or 2 ingredient topping pizzas, and that's the way we enjoy it. Both Coles and Woolworths make a really affordable organic pasta sauce that I love to buy in bulk and just have living in my cupboards. It's so easy to make a meal out of these pasta sauces. I think they're around $2 a bottle, maybe $2.50. As you can see, it makes a perfect pizza sauce. Of course, they're awesome for making any kind of pasta. They're just really handy to have around. That way I don't need to go and make a separate pizza sauce, and I know this will be tasty and delicious straight out of the cupboard. If your kids are a little bit on the picky side like mine are, you may want to blitz the sauce up. It does have visible chunks of vegetables in it. If you do put it through the blender or just use your handheld blender on it, it turns out perfectly. Everything's amalgamated and nobody knows what's in the sauce, and it really is just tasty and delicious. So I don't have any kind of special equipment for baking pizza at home. I don't have a pizza stone or a pizza oven or anything like that. I just use my regular baking trays and I crank the oven up and preheat it for at least 20 minutes at its highest heat, which is my oven about 260 degrees Celsius. And then I do like to bake one pizza at a time if possible. So you bake it on the lowest rack, and that way it gets nice and crispy coming up, the heat coming up from the bottom there, and bake it for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it turns out just right. I can't remember where I read this hack to cover your pizza base with olive oil before you put the sauce on top, but it really does work. It keeps the base crispy and light and stops the sauce from soaking in and making the base in any way mushy. So it sort of creates a barrier between your base and your toppings. Works really well. Super, super tasty, and highly recommend. So we're going to get that in a really hot oven here, as hot as your oven can go. And I'm just going to be baking that for about 15 minutes while your kids ask repeatedly, "Mom, is the pizza ready?" as they start to smell it cooking and get really excited. I love this dinner. It really is on rotation in our home. We like to have it at least once a week. It's just so enjoyable, satisfying, and it's really nice when you make it at home. You just don't get that sort of pizza hangover. So for my family of 8 people, I've made 3 pizzas tonight. I find that we easily eat the 2 pizzas, then we might use up another half of the 3rd pizza, and then I'll have a few slices left just to put into the fridge and leave there. I know they always disappear. Somebody will come along and want a snack, and if there's cold pizza in the fridge, then yes, it will be quick to go. So that was really enjoyable. Plain cheese there and 1 salami and cheese. And rewatching this footage back, I just want to make pizza again tonight. How good is pizza, right? And this is the forage salad my kids went out and grabbed from the garden. We had lettuce, spring onion, some nasturtium, and some parsley there just to go with our pizza tonight. Thanks for spending time with me today. I would love it if you could like, comment, or subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!